On January 29, 2022, in Canton, Massachusetts, Boston police officer John O'Keefe was found dead under mysterious circumstances, sparking one of the most debated criminal cases in the state's history. His girlfriend, Karen Reed, a financial analyst and adjunct professor, was accused of his murder, igniting a legal battle filled with allegations of police misconduct and conspiracy theories. Prosecutors claim Reed struck O'Keefe with her SUV after a night of drinking and left him to die in the snow. The defense argues he was assaulted inside the house and abandoned outside, pointing to potential cover-ups involving law enforcement. The case has since divided public opinion, with supporters on both sides fiercely advocating their views. Social media has fueled speculation, intensifying scrutiny on the investigation. As the case heads toward a retrial in 2025, questions remain about the true sequence of events that led to O'Keefe's tragic fate. On the night in question, Karen Reed and her boyfriend John O'Keefe attended a party hosted by one of O'Keefe's colleagues at a residence in Canton, Massachusetts. The party was initially a celebration, full of laughter, music, and conversation. However, alcohol would soon play a significant role in what transpired, setting off a series of events that would result in a deadly tragedy. Reed, O'Keefe, and a group of friends had spent hours socializing at the party. As the evening wore on, the mood became more spirited. Alcohol consumption escalated, and emotions began to run high. As is often the case when alcohol is involved, tensions between individuals can heighten, and things that might otherwise remain unspoken were no longer bottled up. The details of what exactly transpired during this time are murky, but it is widely believed that at some point, O'Keefe and Reed had a disagreement, the nature of which has remained largely speculative. At approximately 1 a.m., Reed decided to leave the party. This decision would mark the beginning of the sequence of events that led to O'Keefe's death. According to Reed's defense, she had become overwhelmed by the situation and chose to drive herself home. What happened next would become the center of a highly contentious legal battle. While Karen Reed drove away from the party, John O'Keefe followed her. The circumstances surrounding O'Keefe's decision to leave with Reed have remained unclear, though the defense contends that O'Keefe did not intend to follow her, but instead became involved in a confrontation at the party, which led him to exit the house. Hours after Reed had left the party, O'Keefe's body was found in the snow just outside the home where the party had taken place. The discovery was made around 6 a.m. on January 30, 2022, by a passerby who noticed an unconscious figure lying motionless on the ground. Police were called to the scene, and the body was later identified as John O'Keefe, a respected officer with the Boston Police Department. The initial investigation revealed disturbing details that suggested foul play was involved. O'Keefe's body showed signs of blunt force trauma, and an autopsy later confirmed that he had suffered severe injuries that led to his death.
Our first look at police dash cam as the first officer arrives at a Canton home early that snowy morning.
When I arrived, I saw Miss Reed looked like she was giving CPR to him, and she had blood on her face.
Officer Stephen Seraph says he saw a man face up in the snow, later identified as John O'Keefe. Karen Reed and 2 other women were huddled over him. Seconds later, dash cam video shows jurors a frantic Reed running back and forth in front of the police cruiser.
Miss Reed was visibly upset. She kept saying, this is all my fault, this is my fault, I did this, and she was very hysterical.
The medical examiner's report indicated that the cause of death was a combination of blunt force trauma and hypothermia, as O'Keefe had been left exposed to the elements for an extended period of time. The finding led investigators to believe that O'Keefe had been struck by a vehicle, which left him to die alone in the snow. Upon discovering the body, investigators quickly turned their attention to the circumstances surrounding O'Keefe's death. A series of interviews, forensic analyses, and a detailed examination of the evidence soon pointed toward Karen Reed as a possible suspect. Reed had initially claimed that she had left the party earlier that night and had not been involved in any violent altercation. However, when forensic evidence, including security footage from nearby buildings, revealed inconsistencies in her timeline, suspicions began to mount. The footage showed Reed's SUV leaving the vicinity of the party house, followed by a large gap in time before O'Keefe's body was discovered. Additionally, there was evidence that O'Keefe had been struck by Reed's vehicle, a key detail that added to the belief that she may have been involved in his death. One of the most controversial aspects of the investigation was the alleged failure of police to fully investigate certain leads, which some believed pointed to other possible suspects. These suspicions grew when Reed's defense team made allegations of police misconduct, suggesting that law enforcement officers close to O'Keefe may have been involved in a cover-up. The defense argued that O'Keefe had been involved in a confrontation at the party, and that his injuries may have resulted from an attack by others, which was subsequently covered up by members of the police department.
Karen Reed is seen here in court with her attorneys this morning. The hearing is in preparation for her second trial over the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. The prosecution claims that Reed hit O'Keefe with her SUV. The defense claims that O'Keefe was beaten during a fight at a house party and then thrown outside and left to die. The new prosecutor on the case, specially appointed Assistant District Attorney Hank Brennan, wants to exclude the testimony of digital forensics expert witness Richard Green, who testified in the first trial. Green testified last year that a Google search on the phone of witness Jen McCabe, "How long to die in the cold," was made on January 29, 2022 in Canton at 2:27 a.m. The prosecution's theory is that the search was made after 6 a.m. The timing of the search is a key component of this case because it could prove one theory of the case and disprove another. Well, here now is an excerpt of the arguments for an evidentiary hearing about whether the defense expert can testify and to what extent. We'll hear first from the defense.
We don't need a hearing, Your Honor, because they agree on the methodology. They agree that more tools are better.
The Commonwealth does not intend to simply let evidence come in that's not qualified, that's not factually sound, and then go knock down glass houses. That is not the approach the government's going to take to this case.
The case against Karen Reed quickly escalated from a standard criminal investigation into a highly publicized trial. In 2024, Reed's legal team stood in front of a judge and jury to answer charges of manslaughter and motor vehicle homicide. The prosecution painted Reed as a woman who had violently struck O'Keefe with her SUV, leaving him to die in the cold. They argued that she acted out of anger or recklessness, having consumed alcohol earlier in the evening. On the other side, Reed's defense team worked tirelessly to paint a different picture. They argued that Reed had been involved in an emotional confrontation earlier in the night, but she had not intended to harm O'Keefe. Her actions were not premeditated or malicious, they asserted. Instead, they pointed to a possible cover-up orchestrated by law enforcement officers who were involved in a heated exchange with O'Keefe earlier in the evening. The trial became a spectacle, with accusations of police misconduct and corruption on one side, and a woman seeking justice for the death of her boyfriend on the other. The jury deliberated for several days, but the deliberations ultimately ended in a deadlock, leading the judge to declare a mistrial in July 2024. With the trial declared a mistrial, the question of whether Karen Reed would be convicted of the charges against her remains unresolved. The legal battle is far from over. A retrial has been scheduled for April 1, 2025, where the case will be presented once again, this time with the opportunity for a new jury to decide Reed's fate. The events surrounding the retrial are expected to be just as dramatic and controversial as the initial trial, with both sides prepared for an intense and protracted battle in the courts. Public opinion on the case has been divided, with some believing that Karen Reed is a victim of a system that is unwilling to confront the truth, while others contend that she is guilty of a senseless crime. The court of public opinion has weighed heavily on the trial, with social media platforms, news outlets, and legal pundits offering their analysis and opinions on every twist and turn in the case. Conspiracy theories and public outcries have complicated the situation, with some speculating that Reed's involvement in O'Keefe's death was part of a larger conspiracy to protect influential individuals. The murder case of Karen Reed and John O'Keefe remains an ongoing legal saga that has captivated the nation. As the retrial nears, the twists and turns of the case continue to raise questions about justice, truth, and the role of law enforcement in the investigation. Whether Karen Reid is guilty of the crime or is simply a victim of circumstances, only time will tell. As the case unfolds, many will be watching, waiting for answers, and hoping that the truth will ultimately prevail. What do you think? Guilty or framed? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more updates. Thanks for watching.